Welcome to Painting with Tanya. This is going to be our watercolor project for today. So if you're interested, stick around. We're going to learn some new things. We're going to start out with our paints today. We're going to be using our Winsor Newton Cotton paint. We are going to use not all of the colors that are shown in this palette, but we're going to limit our color palette today to raw umber, Paynes gray, indigo, raw sienna, burnt sienna, sepia, and Van Dyke brown. Our paper today is the Fabriano watercolor paper, hot press. This is 140 pound. This is one of my favorites. And we're going to use our trusty plastic corrugated sheets that I've cut down. This is what I refer to lovingly as my gator board. I've been using this material for a really long time. It's very versatile. You can change the sizes and, cut what you need. And, if you want 6 or 7 this size, and you can have that in your supplies. And then, of course, drafting tape. Our drafting tape comes from Amazon. And the drafting tape helps us to hold our paper in place. Just because we're going to be moving it maybe a little bit. And then also, if you put a little bit too much water on your paper, sometimes it buckles. So those really the two main reasons why people use drafting tape on their painting projects. Another reason is that some people like the borders. So you can run this all the way to the edge and create a very nice border. Our brushes today, we're going to use a number 3 liner script brush. This is a 1/2 inch flat brush, and this one is a number 16 flat brush. Of course, a pencil, something to rinse your paints in and get some water. This is my favorite dish towel. I use it quite often. And then we are going to use a spray bottle for working with our activation of our paints, which we do now. And if you need to spray and spritz on your project. So that's what we've got. So we're going to start out, we're going to look back at our project. This is a woodsy kind of an impressionistic piece. It could be anywhere, but this piece is a good, well, I wouldn't say an absolute beginner one, but this would be maybe for someone who's been painting for a little bit and you're changing your style, you're experimenting. So this would be maybe an advanced project, I would think. So we're going to be working towards that look for our project. So we're going to incorporate the rule of thirds in our project today. We do not want our horizon line to end up at the middle of our page. We want to use the rule of thirds, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to start down here and I'm going to create my horizon line. And this horizon line is not straight. It's more shaped like a V, so that if you were in the woods and you saw maybe 2 hillsides that met, or maybe it's, a crevice or, something interesting is going on in the landscape, rather than just, oh, it's a beautiful landscape or it's a beautiful line of trees. So we're going to start out wetting our paper down at the bottom. I know normally we start out at the top, but today we're going to change it up a little bit. And in this project, either way would be absolutely fine. You can start at the top or the bottom. So I don't have too much paper on here, too much water on my paper that it is shiny. So I'm going to let this soak in so that it is very matte. It has a very matte look to it, and this will help us as we create this project. You'll see, and then I'm going to add some at the top. And I'm going to pick up just a little bit of Paynes gray over here. And I'm going to put in some interesting background. I'm going to spread a little bit of this. I'm going to put some interest in our background. You know, we don't know exactly what this is. Maybe it's clouds. It could be fog. It could just be something distant that our eyes are picking up. And, you know, we're not exactly sure what it is, but there's something going on in our background. And it doesn't really, it's not going to be like really like a shape of a cloud. It's just going to be kind of spread around. It's more like a filler. That's a good description for this. All right, then we're going to let this sit and soak into our paper. Okay, so down at our bottom section, we have got a matte look going on. So there is when it's at this stage, when there's water in your paper, it seems as though it's dry, but it's not really dry. There will be some water inside, just below the surface that you can't really tell at this stage. And so we're going to start with some of our browns to put some interest down here. So I'm going to pick up just a touch of my Dyke brown. Put this on. Put some water in it. I'm just going to make it to a loose wash. And I'm just going to kind of spread it here and there. I'm going to add some water to spread it around, just to put some interest. I'm just thinking, you know, in terms of, in my head at this moment, you know, I want dirt here. Maybe I want some rocks. You know, there's a lot of interesting things that go on when you're walking at the edge of a forest or just inside of a forest. So I'm gonna put some more water, and I'm gonna touch into this right here is already have it on my palette, but this is raw sienna, and then some burnt sienna, 2 different colors. So I'm gonna pick up some burnt because it's a little bit darker, and I'm just gonna put some interesting little marks. You know, these could be rocks, it could be some dirt. You know, there's different colors of dirt, different types of dirt, and maybe this has some iron in it. I think that's what that is. Whenever you have red dirt, you've heard of red dirt. So it could be some of that. So just make some little interesting things going on. And I might even pick up, just to make some interesting dark sections, just pick up a little of that Paynes gray, tuck it in. And I'm experimenting a little, and I'm just making it just interesting. All right, I'm just gonna let this sit for, okay, so now while we were working on getting some color and some definition to this area, our top area has dried. Now I'm tipping mine sideways, and it looks pretty matte in most areas. Now this area right here is not matte, so that means I probably just put just a little bit too much paint in that area. So I'm gonna kind of be mindful of that when I get to that area. I'm still working with my 1/2 inch flat. I'm gonna pick up some Dyke brown and just work some on my palette just so I can reach and grab it. And then I'm gonna put me a tree in here, and when I do my tree, I'm gonna start down here, and I'm gonna go skip, 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 skip up, and it's gonna go off my page. There we go. So here I had a little bit of water, so I'm just gonna leave that. And so it's, you know, spreading right there. And here, I'm gonna pick up some more paint. And you can also add some paint And I can add some of that dark color in there too to make your tree very interesting. Okay. So I'm going to pick up some Van Dyke Brown again, put a little bit more in there. I'm going to put a little bit of our dark shade. So this one, and then I'm going to come out right beside it. I'm going to pick up some just straight Van Dyke in there. And then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make our tree darker in some areas. Make it a little bit bigger. So there we go. So yep, I like that. And I might pick up a little bit of this right here. And just kind of clean up my edges just a little bit and put a little bit darker here, make that trunk a little darker. So these are impressionistic, so they're not, you know, they're not going to be just like a regular tree. Some are going to be different sizes. And we might have a few limbs going out over that direction. So now I'm going to try one with just my really dark Paynes gray. And I'm going to create, this one's going to be a little bit bigger. Or taller, I should say. Not really bigger, but taller. And I'm expanding my line just a little bit, making it just a slight bit wider. And that one maybe has something going on like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna put one over here. So we also want to remember that this we're gonna need to work in an odd number. So when I say odd number, like the rule of thirds. So when you're doing art projects, you also want to work with odd numbers. So we're working for trees right now. Right now we have 5 trees that we've got in, and I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that Van Dyke Brown and I'm gonna mix it in the same puddle I had with that Paynes gray. And I'm going to come over here and work on this tree a little bit. I didn't mess with it too much just a moment ago because I did have that little puddle of water going on. And I didn't want to interrupt the process there. So now I think it's dried. So now I'm going to kind of put some dark in here. You want to add your items into your painting with odd numbers. So we want to have, you know, 5 trees, or we want to have 3 trees, something like that. We want to have odd numbers. So this one is a little, it's not very interesting. So because I used that flat brush the way I created it, but I wanted you to see what happens if you use your brush just straight, using your brush up. So I'm going to put some brown in here, and I'm going to lift out some of that paint that was in there. So to make it look more interesting, to make our bark have some character. So just lifting some paint, adding some paint here, taking some paint there. And we're working with, right now we have the Van Dyke Brown, and we are working with that Paynes gray. Okay, that's looking pretty good. We have some interesting things going on. So we want to have some interest going in the background. We want to have some interest in our foreground. And I have a little bubble on my paper, so I'm gonna pull this a little bit tighter. Something happened when I taped that down, so we got it fixed now. So so now I'm gonna work with my larger brush, and I'm gonna pick up some of the interesting sienna colors over here. Yeah, we have the raw sienna and the burnt sienna, and I'm just gonna get that on my palette there. We have a light wash, and I'm gonna let our tree set for a moment. I've got a light wash going on down here, and I like it. And now I'm gonna take this darker burnt sienna, and I'm just gonna tap in some things like this. You know, we're not sure what these are. You know, maybe it's a stick, or it could be some weeds. You know, we're not quite sure what we're working on there, but it kind of adds some color. And then I'm gonna just have water. I rinse my brush, and now I just have water. And then I'm just gonna kind of drag it a little bit. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna rinse again just to get the paint off, because I had some paint over here, and I'm just gonna tap in and do this, and kind of give us some background. You know, this could be some trees in the distance. This could be, you know, could be bushes. We're not sure what it is, but we like it. And put some interesting things here. And I'm gonna pick up the other sienna. Maybe I'm gonna run it up here a little bit. And I'm just using my flat brush. I'm using it straight down. I'm tapping some color in. Some of that's gonna be covered up, so you know, we're just gonna do this. All right. We're gonna let that sit for a little bit and see anything that's going on. It's kind of different. Okay, I like our composition. We have an interesting horizon line, and we've got an odd number of trees. We've got different sizes of trees, different colors of trees. This one might be just a tad dark, and I'm gonna make that base a little, I'm gonna make that a little bit more interesting. So I'm gonna tap in just a little bit, just to make it a little bit wider, because sometimes, you know, maybe something happened to this tree, who knows. All right, that looks better, I like it. And our background is really interesting. I think we got a good start. So I'm gonna let this kind of sit here. I'm not gonna mess with it because it is still wet. This side is still wet. I do need to drag some little smaller trees up. So I'm gonna start with my 1/2 inch flat. I'm gonna start down in this area, and I'm just gonna drag some smaller ones up. This time, I'm gonna use some of that Van Dyke and the indigo with this nice little puddle that I've got on my palette here. And it's really, really not dark enough. So I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. Okay. I'm just gonna walk it up there, make it look a little bit interesting. And you can always try the larger brush, see what different ones you get. Maybe this one has some cousins that are living in the neighborhood, and they're kind of growing up in there too. Okay. And let's see, I think we're dry here. Yeah. Okay, so this brush is doing really good. This has got a nice tip to it. It's doing really well. I'm going to get some more of that brown, because these really are a little bit too light. Maybe that one crosses over. And so I just added a nice little tree grove there. So now I'm going to kind of maybe add some branches coming off. This brush is really nice for that. I'm going to pick up just some Van Dyke brown now and draw some lines up. I'm going to go back into our siennas. I'm going to add some of that tone in here just to make it some interest. And then I'm going to pick up this other one. And then I'm going to add some of this here. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with this brush over to this area, and I'm going to make some very fine lines and see if I can make these represent something that would be seen in nature. So, and we're building our layers, so we're just kind of creating some interest in here. Maybe we're going to have some come this direction, this direction. Okay. Then now I'm going to take my flat brush. I'm going to use some clear water, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a shadow effect underneath our trees. So we don't really want them, and if I get color here, like what I did, you know, because I'm using water, when you touch the water to the paint, and then I'm going to create a shadow, and I'm going to spread that paint. So that paint is going to touch the other paint that's around it, and that's what we want. So we're going to just create a shadow, and it also helps create the illusion that our tree is planted in the ground, and it's not just floating, that it's actually in the ground. So I'm just tapping the bottom of my tree, and I'm dragging the paint back and forth to create that illusion. Okay, so right, I'm going to do some over here. This one kind of got hid, so we don't have to do too much to that one right there. But this one, I'm just going to touch the bottom of my tree. I'm going to drag that paint back and forth a little bit, and it creates the indication that it's like there's, you know, it's not just flat ground, that there's something going on there too, and creating that shadow, creating some interest. All right, so we're looking really good. And now we're gonna do a dry brush technique. So I have my flat brush. I'm gonna take all the water out. I ran it through some paint. So I've got some paint on my brush. No, I don't have any extra water, so I've got some dry paint, and I am creating the idea that there is some weeds here. These are some grasses. We are not sure. Then we're gonna kind of touch the bottoms a little bit. Then we're gonna drag it up. We can turn it sideways and like that. Okay. Now I'm gonna do that same thing with my indigo. I got all of that. I rinsed out my brush to get the brown, Van Dyke brown off. Dried my brush really well. Now I'm going to dip into this indigo paint, and I'm going to create some little interesting things that are happening over here. I just wiped off my paint and come back in here. Okay, like that. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag. I drag some of that indigo into here. We're going to create some little interesting crevices and different things. Now I'm going to I just have water on my brush. I'm just going to smooth this line out right here. Smooth out, not too far. Just going to take it over just a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to do dry brush again. Rinse my brush, dry it out, pick up some of this paint here, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull some of that around. And it seems I've got some water over here from my previous work when we worked on that section right there. So now I'm coming in with clean water. And my dry brush work with that dark did not work so well because there was still water. It wasn't completely dry. So this might happen to you. So if that does happen to you, just create a shadow. I just created a nice little interest here on my heel. So I'm going to rinse my brush out, dry my brush off. That's what I'm doing now. I'm going to pick up and let's see if we can get some over here. Oh yeah, there we go. This is dry, this area over here. That's very dry. All right. So, and these will dry a little bit lighter than what we have. I'm going to come over here and smooth out this little area here. Blend it in just a little bit better so it doesn't stand out so much. Okay, and it kind of created a little light pocket right there. That's kind of interesting. That makes it look really nice. So this project is all about the layers. So what you create with your project, it may turn out a little bit different than mine. And you can even tell this project, the scale is a little bit smaller than the scale, even though both of these paintings were painted by myself. So, and here for the background, I used the blues to create the indication that there are trees in the background. For this project, I used the siennas to do that same effect. So using these techniques, you can create custom artwork using your intuitive abilities to create art. But this is a very good project that you can work in just to get back in the practice of painting again. If you're having a non-creative period of time and this is just one of those little fun projects that you can kind of, work in and enjoy the time that you're just spending being let me see right there. Being spontaneous and, working with the art materials that you have and designing projects that reflect your artistic style. I'm going to just kind of wipe that because we want it to be more of a background more than just carry it over around that heel. So yeah, I'm going to kind of blend this in just a little bit right there. Okay, so like this. So this area right here, I feel like I need to do a little work with that. And it seems to be, maybe it's not dark enough for some reason, I'm thinking. So I'm just adding a few areas with some darker trees. Okay, nothing major. We're just kind of, it just added another layer, so it creates depth. So this painting can have some really nice depth. Okay, so I like how this has turned out so far. I'm gonna use some of our siennas over here and just kind of poke in a few, maybe these are dead leaves or leaves that stayed on, you know, they didn't quite fall off or something like this. Maybe they're seed pods or something. Something's going on with these. We're not sure what they are. We've seen them in nature and we know they're there, but we're not exactly sure what they are. Okay, I like that because it creates a little bit of interest, not too overwhelming. Maybe do some over here. And this area maybe needs a little bit more. Maybe this one needs just a couple of dark ones. It adds another layer, so it kind of creates the illusion to the person that's looking at your work that there are multiple layers, like, oh, this one's further back, this one is a different kind of tree. And we use the same techniques, we just use different colors of paint. So now we're going to try to get some grasses in here, and I'm using my script liner, and I need my paint to be very wet, and I also need a little bit more color. So Van Dyke, some of that indigo, and I think that's the color right there. That really looks like sepia, actually. I probably should have added just sepia to our list. So now I've got this little weird line right here. So I'm just gonna create some grass in this area. It's a very light touch, and up and over, up and over. And maybe this grass is thicker in some areas. Maybe some hangs out from the side. There's some bigger pieces. Then we'll come over here. We'll tuck in some around our tree trunks. And in front of our tree trunks, behind, around, beside. Okay. Make a little shadow so they're not really, so they're not floating. And and maybe tuck some in there, even though we can't really see them, but we know they're there, so that's what's important. So we're gonna do, they're kind of changing to a different kind of color over here. They're going a little bit lighter on me, so I'm gonna just pick up some of this indigo, and I'm gonna kind of go in there a couple of places. They're again like and then I'm taking some water to kind of spread it a little bit. So it's gonna kind of be messy. So, but it's okay. All right, and then I cleaned my flat brush right here. I kind of got a line going on. I'm gonna clean that line up. It looks like a bloom. That's what it amounted to in my eyes. And I think I need some stuff right here and around. And I'm just going to pick up some indigo now. And then make some curly, just indigo this time. Yep. Okay, that's really good. That's nice. And then of course we need some grasses in this area. So There are different directions. And this is still, you can hear my dogs. This is still indigo, and I'm kind of creating some interest. And that's it. I like it. And I think I'm going to call this project done. And thank you for painting with me today. Please let me know in your comments if you have any questions. And happy painting. I'll see you soon.